Well, hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful summer so far, staying cool, at least in parts of the United States. And yes, I look like I've been out in the sun too much. My face and chest look awfully red, but that is not from the sun. I was actually, in this video, I'm going to be talking about some deeper insights that I've recently been receiving uh, about the differences or how we can use our tropical gene keys chart and our Vedic or sidereal charts together, or what they mean at a deeper level. But as I was today, before I am doing this video, I decided to do a little bit more check-in, do an oracle session, not an oracle session, but more of like a channeling or an opening up to my monadic self. Really deep contemplation and asking questions, getting answers, responses. And during that session, I could just feel it's almost like this is a God burn, not a sunburn, tingling of energy. And suddenly my face and chest felt like it was on fire. So either I'm allergic to something that I'm not aware of, or this is like a God burn or an energy burn. My face was just on fire and I could feel all this tingling energy. So yeah, that was really interesting. Okay, so today I just want to share some deeper insights about the differences between a gene keys tropical chart versus sidereal or Vedic. And if you're not familiar, the difference between Western tropical astrology and Vedic or sidereal astrology, tropical astrology is based on the stars and the constellations that were around in around 0 AD, whereas sidereal astrology is based on real time, where the stars and constellations and planet are right now. So they're kind of different. So this one, so tropical is sort of like based in the past a little bit, you know what I mean? Where sidereal is like is real time, what's happening in the heavens right now. And I know many of you Gene Keys people out there have heard people say, well, you know, the tropical, what do they call it? The tropical is for like personal self, and then the sidereal or Vedic is cosmic self. And they kind of leave it at that without really understanding what do we mean by cosmic self. And yet they can continue to work the tropical chart as if it's their be all end all chart. And that may very well be the case, depending on your soul's evolution this lifetime. The tropical chart may be where you need to be. Because let's see, where am I going with this? I hope that didn't sound condescending. But and you may be working the system, the sections, and you may come to the pearl, and it will be your grand finale, your service work to the world. And because you're thinking this is the higher mental aspect of your chart. Well, and that very well may be true. You can work the chart that way, but you can, that's being like very focused in on tropical chart. I know I'm not explaining this well, but it will be clear in just a moment. But what I've been receiving and seeing, and actually it's becoming living reality in my life. This is all happening all synchronistically about questions of my own evolution and particular initiations that I'm going through. And so, yeah, I'm getting confirmations and synchronicities that are confirming all these insights from books and whatever else. Anyway, but you can, if you feel like your Vedic chart is pulling you, then here's how you can look at or the information I've been given about the difference between these two or how they work together. You can pull back and look at the tropical chart. And what the tropical chart, these 3 sections really represent: the activation, the Venus, and the Pearl, represent the first 3 initiations on the spiritual path. And that includes, obviously, the activation is the physical body. And these you can, for reference, we're talking about the initiations referenced in Gene Key 22. But all these initiations, all that information comes from, Richard has taken that information all from Theosophy. And this is where I've been getting my information and backup. So they have a lot more in-depth detail about these particular initiations and what they mean. But anyway, the activation sequence is the first initiation. It's more physical. It's about the physical body. It's kind of like, prior to that, you're like on a probationary initiation. Like, you're kind of waking up to things beyond, and you're starting to work on yourself. It's kind of like you've stepped onto the self-help thing. Yeah, I'm going to be a better person. I'm working on myself. That's like the probationary path. And then all of a sudden you kind of get this spiritual inkling, and you're like, oh, I have to work deeper on myself. There's a spiritual aspect. And now you're like at the first initiation, and you're letting go, physical meaning not just the physical body, but you're letting go of all these, being image consciousness, the body, trying to look beautiful, really trying to make the body the temple of the soul, like, getting kind of nutty about it, fasting, and worrying about your image and making the body like, and it also has to do with desires and pleasure, and of course sexuality. That's the first initiation, and that's what the activation sequence represents, the physical first initiation. And then, of course, as you all well know, the Venus sequence is, and this all represents the 3 bodies of man: physical, emotional, and mental. So then the Venus sequence, you take care of the physical aspect, and then you get initiated into, now we're going to work on really much deeper into the emotional body and start healing all that sort of stuff. And then eventually, and that's a really big journey that may take a lifetime, but probably not during these times, because things are speeding up so quickly. So that's the second initiation. And then we move into the third initiation, which is now you're working, and third initiation is huge, right? It is, we're talking now about the Pearl sequence. This is about working on your mental body, and all of these bodies, we're pulling back out, we're looking at this, and we're saying tropical is the 3 bodies of the personality, that you're really working on the personality and cleaning up the personality. And during this time, during the first initiation, the soul is beginning to wake up in you. See, people think the soul is already in you, but it really isn't. It hasn't been infused and embodied. It only begins its process of infusion or embodiment at around first and second initiation, so activation in Venus, right? And it's a slow movement downwards, right? Because anyway. So where was I? So here we are, Pearl sequence. I've just lost my train of thought. Oh, let me get back to it. And the Pearl sequence is this third initiation. And we're talking now, we're working in the personality's mental body, but also the third initiation is also that point. So there's 3. And during this time, during these, I hope you can't hear the sirens. It's noon here, and the sirens are going off. During this time between, somewhere in between the first and second initiation, probably around the second initiation, Kundalini is going to have been awakened in there somehow. And she has 3 points of, and they're talked about in the codon rings, the ring of trials, where it's the base, the heart, and the throat that Kundalini passes through. So we have base, which is activation sequence. The heart obviously is Venus sequence. And then the throat, where Kundalini passes through, is the third initiation, Pearl sequence. And this is still working on the personality's mental body. And the initiation that happens at this time, this is a very high level consciousness initiation where Kundalini has broken through the throat area, and now she's reached upper ajna center, not lower brow, but upper brow, and has probably reached Makara point. This is where one is initiated. Oh, I hope you can hear that. Initiated into the supernal light of God, the monadic self. I mean, you've seen it. You've had some kind of spiritual awakening. You've been initiated into that light, and you have realization, not stable, but realization of true non-dual awareness. Okay, so this is a high level initiation, that third initiation. And many people will take that pearl sequence and think, oh, this is what I'm here to do in the world. And I would say it's really not. You're still working, because this is a real probationary initiation. Oh, I wish that siren would stop. And what I've learned, what I was getting was that, yes, the pearl sequence, I have all these notes. The pearl sequence has been misunderstood. Yes, the pearl sequence really represents, after working on physical, emotional, really your radiance, and not yet your doingness, because soul hasn't completely fully infused into the body. It's still working to get rid of those thoughts, those deep unconscious thoughts, the programs that are holding everything else around. It represents how you best relate to the outer world. So you would take like your vocation, like for me, because the third initiation is a real testing period. I mean, there's a test after, there's probationary period after the third initiation. But as you're working deep on the mental body, you're beginning to merge into the causal zone, right? Just lost my train of thought. So for example, in my pearl sequence in the tropical, for my personality, you know, my vocation is 13, gene key 13. That's not meant to tell me, the personality, what I'm here to do. This whole tropical Venus sequence is meant to say, this is the destruction of the personality and all of its desires to do and become something. This is a complete letting go. And for me, the pearl sequence represents how I am best to relate to the outer world in a mental way. So I'm here to learn to listen to the world through love, to see things from love, and how the personality best fits in, because it's been conditioned, right? So you can look at the tropical pearl sequence as the current conditioned personality that needs to go away, so that the Vedic chart, your cosmic self, which is really your soul, wishes to infuse into the body. And that's the beingness you are meant to be and do. I know I'm not making any sense. So let me just look at my notes here. So anyway, I have a feeling that that's why Richard really hasn't released the pearl sequence yet, because it is it's quite a high initiation, and maybe he's waiting for more people to understand it, or I don't know, I'm just guessing here. Anyway, what I was getting is that the sidereal chart, the Vedic chart, is what you are actually aspiring to be. That is a soul infused way of being in the world, whereas the tropical represents personality. Now, if you are simply meant, many people who are just newly waking up, coming to this, spiritual realm kind of business, working on themselves, I mean, newly awakens, will remain very focused on a tropical type chart and working within the realm of the personality and beginning to recognize maybe some soul promptings. But it's very difficult to really truly recognize soul promptings until you're deep into the third and nearing the fourth initiation, because personality is so strong and that mental body is so strong, it can really override the soul's prompting. So it's very difficult to tell the difference. Anyway, so some people are meant to work on that because it's very deep work. They're just getting an inkling of what soul work is about, and maybe they're not quite sure what true spiritual awakening is about. So they're really working in this realm. And if that's the case, like you're not interested, Vedic doesn't mean anything to you, awakening doesn't mean any, enlightenment doesn't mean anything to you, then you can take the pearl, and it would be like your Siddhic and gift frequencies, the highest frequencies that the personality can offer to the world. And absolutely, you can use it as your doingness and what you want to become in the world. But that is not complete spiritual awakening or the path to enlightenment. You have to go further, because that's third initiation. Okay, let me just look at my notes, see if there's anything else. So there is a direct correlation between the tropical and Vedic, ding, ding, ding. And what I was getting is that somehow the words that I'm using may not fully explain this, but the Vedic chart is like in response, that's not the right word, to the tropical. Anyway, there's a 1-to-1 correlation. And it's like, if you're in the shadow of the tropical shadow, then you can trace it back. The Vedic shadow, not that it's truly relevant, represents ancestral and collective work. I think many of you knew that already. And you can kind of see, and you can see the thread. If I'm in addiction in tropical and it's linked to, I don't know, control over here, then there is a deep ancestral and collective thing that is linking the shadow of control with addiction. I don't know, that's kind of how they're linked together. They are connected 1-to-1. And the Vedic chart is a representation of what remains of the causal body. Ding, ding, ding. I'm looking at my notes here. Because when you're, and this is where I'm at, I'm in the probationary period before entering, I am on the verge entering into the fourth initiation. And I don't say that from egoic perspective. I had no idea. I thought I was still stuck on one. But in reading some books, I was getting like, oh shit, I'm further along than I thought. Anyway, and this is why I'm discussing it, because it's become very relevant to me. And the Vedic chart represents when you're entering, nearing, and into the fourth initiation, you are now, the soul has become as deeply infused as it can be. And now you're working on what remains in the causal body, all of these deep ancestral and lifetime impressions, samskaras, and collective things that are in your causal body. Because now at this point, the causal body, you're working to deconstruct the causal body, because that's going to go away. It goes away. And what happens now in the fourth initiation is when the monad now becomes like the soul was previously. The soul now has been infused into the body. The causal body is no longer necessary because it used to work as an intermediary between monad, the God, your personal God, the God, it feels like God to you. But now at fourth initiation, there's a direct link from monad to beingness. And the Vedic chart represents what your soul has aspired to be for lifetimes. And it's the destruction of this collective samskara stuff in the causal body to where there is no more need for incarnation. And so now the monadic self is working directly through the body. And I would say, whatever's left of the personality. Let's see what else. Let's see. Vedic gifts and cities reflect soul infused. It's a way of being and doing, but without doing. It's like all the traits, the gifts, and the cities represented in the Vedic chart is what you begin to radiate and do without trying to do. It's what comes out naturally. It's what your soul aspired to deliver into this world as part of its service work. And the Venus sequence, I couldn't, because I'm not there yet. I can only get strong answers like when I'm there, when I'm actually working in this realm. And I'm not quite working in this realm, obviously. But the Venus sequence in the Vedic really represents our contact with humanity. And I got a yes, but you need to know a lot more about that. Yeah, the Vedic chart represents the qualities of our monad, our God self, our Atman. And the Venus sequence represents more of our Christ body. And the pearl represents our higher mental body, our Buddhic self, our Atmic self, working in the physical world. Let me see, is there anything else I need to say? Yes, the pearl equals the Buddhic body, ding, 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 higher mental. Is there a way to work with the Vedic to help with the tropical, ding, ding, ding? Yes, there is, and I'm still working on that. This is something that I'm perhaps considering, if more stuff comes to me, a class on how to work with the two charts together. Vedic is our aspiration. Yes, use city. Simply, you can look at the two charts, and what I've gotten for now is this about simply dropping what you see in the tropical and start being in the Vedic? Ding, ding, ding. I know it sounds very simple. Is it that simple to say, oh, I'm in addiction right now in my whatever? But no, I really am supposed to be in the frequency of authority or valor. There's a way of working with you. It's to say, no, let go of this in your tropical and be this. You don't need to become it, but rest in it, because you already are that at the deepest level of your being, which is your monadic self. Okay. Wow, that was a really long discussion. I don't know if it's helpful to you at all, but I really feel like if the Vedic chart calls to you, this is the whole point of the thing, is that there's a reason. Like for me, the tropical chart, I was like, yeah, I totally resonate with it because it like matches everything in my personality. But when I saw my Vedic chart, I immediately went, I'm home. It felt like home to me, and that it's a totally different feel. And that's where I know I'm aspiring, I'm meant to be resting in. So yeah, if the Vedic chart really calls to you, then I think that your journey here is a real much deeper path to spiritual awakening than simply just becoming, trying to do some service in the world. This is about the Western way of doing things, working on the personality, kind of new age service work, merging with the Eastern tradition of the path to enlightenment. And we've got to merge the two. And that's eventually, I hope someday, to be able to have a class or to help people with that we have to merge the outer journey with the inner journey. Yeah. Okay. So that's it. I hope it was somewhat helpful or interesting at the very least. Okay. Bye.